Alrighty. Well, welcome to the first podcast episode of my Glocktane adventures in Overwatch 2. I'd always wanted to make a podcast, but it always seemed like something idiots with a microphone just can't help themselves but make. And after, I made that joke, 100 some times on TikTok, we had enough people in the Twitch stream and the YouTube and TikTok to say, hey, no, we actually want this. So I'll go ahead and I'll give it my best shot. So we're going to try to tackle different issues in video gaming, specifically the games that I've been playing. So that way you can kind of get an understanding that I'm not talking out my ass. I'm doing it through, well, honestly, thousands of hours of experience with these games, right? Playing at the highest level. In the background, you'll see I'm playing in the Masters 4 right now. I'm solo DPS, flying my way through the DPS ranking system, and that's where this topic is going to be stemming from. So there seems to be an issue with DPS, exclusively talking about solo carry potential in Overwatch 2. So in each of the different roles, tank, support, damage, there needs to be multiple ways to be effective in your team, right? So for example, tank has the ability to CC, take space, and also get kills. Now, in Season 1, it was D.Va, Winston, and then Zarya. They were the most applicable for all of those roles. Winston would be able to CC an entire team with his ultimate. D.Va would be able to bonk people off of high ground very effectively and very concisely. Should also be able to negate a lot of damage done and also do a bunch of damage. She could one-shot squishies, essentially, with her boosters, rocket, melee combo. It was very impressive, and unless you had a pocket, it was pretty hard to get around. So after the nerfs that came over in Season 2, we now experience the Roadhog dilemma, and this is because they nerfed Sombra into oblivion. And it sucks. It's an unfortunate thing, because now Doomfist and Roadhog are the ones that are just diving and killing, and it seems like Blizzard, the people who are working on this game, don't seem to be the same people who worked on Overwatch 1, which made it a, sensation, a phenomenon. The biggest problem that these tanks are facing isn't, one tank is so OP. It's the fact that they're doing multiple jobs. It is no longer 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and 2 healers, which then devolved into 3 tanks and 3 healers. The roles of tank and support, in my opinion, have dipped their toes into the DPS pool a little too heavily, to the point where it is silly not to pick characters who one-shot, whether that be Sojourn with a Mercy Pocket, Genji with Ana so that you can Nanoblade and one-shot the enemy no matter what, or 3, Widowmaker and Hanzo, or even Junkrat with his bomb and shift combo. All these other characters like Soldier, Cassidy, Bastion seems to be one of the few exceptions. Tracer getting kicked out of the meta because she's so frail with her ability to one-clip. Ana can just two-shot her now. A support can kill a DPS hero in 2 bullets. That's a little goofy in my opinion, but they wanted to make her feel a little bit more survivable. All the tanks that were in the meta had to get nerfed because of how much damage they did. So with Zarya, they got rid of her survivability. With D.Va, they just lowered her numbers a little bit. And with Winston, they lowered his survivability by changing his cooldown. So that little rock, paper, scissors game is over. When we look at the DPS, they created an abomination called Sojourn, the character I have playing in the background. I despise this character. I am one of those people that hates playing the absolute best to get the best results. Now, it doesn't matter that this game I'm getting shit on. I'm just doing bad, right? But the fact of the matter remains that the top 500 players play Sojourn and Mercy. There are an insane amount of people who are climbing up just using the meta, which is, most efficient tactic available. They are just spamming this duo because the Blizzard, basically the design team of the characters, the balance team, whatever you want to call them, they're very obviously struggling with creating a good DPS roster. The ones that are strong are too strong in their opinion because they're doing their job. And then those that are not doing as well are seen as balanced because, well, they're not killing as much, but they're still fun to play. The fun comes from the dopamine triggers, right? It doesn't actually come from getting the job done. So when we look at tank, scaring an entire enemy team off, that is satisfying. Getting an environmental kill with Roadhog hook, even better, but just landing that hook in general, you get that immediate rush of endorphins to where you think this person's going down. With Reinhardt, hitting the slam on 5 enemies, just pure dominance. There's the meme of the Alpha Rein, right? Now we've talked about tanks a lot, but just take a couple of those examples to your heart. Let's look at the supports, right? Hitting a sleep dart on Ana, hitting a headshot on Kiriko, hitting a Suzu to block a Junkrat tire, hitting the emo field on Baptiste to block an entire Diva bomb, using the wall as Baptiste, the amplification matrix, and watching your Widow just get 3 or 4 kills, right? There are so many enabling tools that are so fun on those characters, but they don't have the dopamine triggers, right? Because it doesn't truly feel like you're doing much. When it comes to the meta, with what we see as the true enablers, like Ana ulting the Genji, you basically just give them a pat on the back and say, hey, go for it. Go for it. And that's how you climb. You nano the Ryan and you say, hey, go for it. With Kiriko, you throw your ult down, and it's so strong, they had to nerf literally every aspect about it in a hotfix patch. To the point, it's still a one ultimate fight winning utility tool. God, that's terrible vocabulary. I don't know. You get the idea. It only takes one ult, to win a fight. With a lot of the ultimates from the DPS, it doesn't truly feel like that skill gap is there. And the reason why is because in the support role, you get it from enabling your teammates. You are the person that, you look to help your friends more than you help yourself. But at the same time now, there are supports out there that can actually do so much damage that they can basically take the role of another DPS character. This is why GOATS was so oppressive. And so instead of fixing the problem with what the DPS characters can do, they decided that they would just make it role queue. And now when we look at open queue, where you're not forced to pick a DPS character, very rarely do you see them even picking DPS characters. They might see 1 or 2 every once in a while, like a Reaper or a Bastion, just to deal with the absurd amount of tanks. But it's primarily going to be AoE healing or, like Ana to give that extra tank the extra damage it needs. When you look at all these compounding issues, the tanks being so strong, you don't even need DPS. The supports being so survivable, you don't even need DPS, right? There's no peel character in DPS. The closest I can think of is Symmetra, hilariously enough on screen as well, where you put turrets down for your teammates, or Cassidy, where you throw the grenade onto Genji. But a lot of those characters, there's so much in the game to negate what you're doing that it comes to the crux of the issue. And this is the big thing I wanted to talk about, is DPS, unless you are a God-given natural, or science-given natural, I don't really care what you believe, it's more of an expression. It feels impossible to carry against these enemies. Whether they be teleporting out, whether they go fortified and just take 60% reduced damage, whether they take a hit of their vape and heal 300 damage, and then also have 50% damage reduction. Not even a Diva Bomb can kill these characters most of the time if they're playing correctly. And so I'm not really sure where Blizzard is trying to take these DPS plays, but it seems like they're really focused on the skill gap of, hi, honey. I'm just recording the podcast right now. Now I'll come talk to you when I'm done. And so the true abomination of what DPS roles we're looking at seems to be on the crux of DPS characters have a very hard time doing enough damage over a certain amount of time. And I know what you're thinking. It was like, well, if they do too much, they're just insanely oppressive. No. You need to make it so that it's hard and rewarding, right? So let's look at Widowmaker, for example. She is a one-shot machine, but her SMG is so weak that you can't just walk around and consistently get multi-kills with it, right? Now we take that same expression to Sojourn, and she also has an SMG and sniper built into her kit. You can call it the railgun, whatever you want to call it. It's still a sniper. It's still a sniper because, you know, you're going to look for the most efficient tactic available, which is just mercy boosted or amplification matrix. Really, any of these things work. Or Ana ult her when she's ulting. So there's plenty of damage boosts because just tweaking the damage numbers, it's just not enough. But Widow cannot just run around and be as consistent because her mobility is on a basically 12-second cooldown for her grapple, which is very telegraphed and easy to counter if you're playing against her. Sojourn, on the other hand, has very untelegraphed abilities. You have no idea if her charge is high enough until it's too late. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, but you could see her glowing blue. Well, if you start a fight 1v1, Cassidy versus Sojourn, for example, Cassidy versus Sojourn, she hits you with 3 of those SMG pellets in the head, just 3. She can then one-shot you. So from 0 charge, she could one-shot you, right? If she hits those 3 pellets. Cassidy is rewarding in the sense that you have to make sure that you're either up close enough and can control the spray of the fan the hammer, which is his right click, or you can hold the left click down and get a couple of consecutive hits. Obviously more damage, but it's harder to connect all of those. The roll resets your reload, so you can kind of guess if you're in a duel with him that he's going to use his roll to basically reset his ammo count, right? These are telegraphic and wonderfully designed parts of his kit. Now, I don't care how you feel about the grenade. I'm not a huge fan. I missed the CC because it gave the damage another kind of like helping hand, right? It kept McCree kind of viable. But right now, the Genji matchup against him, as long as Genji gets 1 or 2 shurikens onto him, he can then bait and get close with his reflect and just eliminate all counterplay. In this ping system, you cannot counterplay canceling your deflect, right-clicking, and dashing. The Genji one-shot is too strong, right? And that's where, once again, the one-shot mechanics seem to be taking over for who these people are. I'm sorry, for who the Blizzard development team seem to think that they want the direction of the game to go. It's very frustrating because as a DPS player, the majority of your cast has 225 health or below. And so getting one shot or completely annihilated from that amount of damage from any character is possible. And I know what you're thinking. It was like, oh, but you were just talking about skill and reward. Well, it's not very rewarding to get in that position because these tanks with the damage reduction don't have to position well anymore now that there's only one tank. So when it looks like you're positioned well on high ground, Roadhog can pull you off. Winston can jump up there and 1v1 you because he just has too much health and he has too much survivability, and his shield can also block the healing, right? So when you start to look at DPS players don't have much agency, you start to wonder, okay, well, what DPS players or what DPS characters do have high agency? Well, they're not very satisfying because you're using your abilities to survive. You're not doing it to use damage. Like, think about Reaper, for example. You pick Reaper because, oh, the tank is just running wild and you need the ability to survive with Wraith, right? You don't pick Reaper because you want to be a shotgun up close in your face kind of guy. You would choose Junkrat because it's an instant one-shot with one grenade and a satchel. That is a very frustrating problem because if I can't pick my favorite characters, the ones that give me the dopamine rush that feel good, I'm not going to continue playing the game. And a lot of people struggle with this idea and they say, oh, well, they just need to nerf Hog. They just need to lower his hook range. No, they need to change the character. I want most tanks to do way less damage, and I want them to be more CC oriented. I want them to take the approach of League of Legends. That if you're 1v1 against a tank, you could still have the possibility of losing, but it's an outplay potential. Right? As long as they're on even terms. If you go up against someone who has a high amount of crowd control or, the ability to stop someone's movement, you can set them up and weave in auto attacks. Right now, all you really look at is, okay, well, Roadhog has a shotgun that can one-shot me if he gets close enough. Roadhog has a hook that can one-shot me if he is not close enough. If I start killing Roadhog, he can just hit a vape. Right? So he's going to get 10 shots with his shotgun if I'm by myself. That's not fun. But let's look at Orisa. Okay, I cannot do enough damage. There is no character in the game that can do enough damage when she just hits her shift ability and just walks at you. There is no character. Even Symmetra, who has arguably one of the highest DPS in the game, when it's ramped up and at level 3, cannot out DPS that Fortify. And then she also has a Javelin, which can do 100 damage, which is almost half of your health as Symmetra. So if she lands one ability, just boom, half health. And she just walks you down. Let's look at Winston. Winston has a 130 damage combo. And if he lands it, you're instantly just at a huge disadvantage. Now, I've been solo queuing. I'm trying to hit GM. I was a tank main in the original Overwatch 1, hit GM. I played Reinhardt. I was very good at IGLing, which is in-game leader. I know what I'm talking about. In the first game, I only played until probably like season 10, and then I got addicted to battle royales. But in the first game, it truly felt like if you understood how to plan for the next team fight, how to create space for your DPS characters, they weren't consistently worried about surviving. They were the ones that felt like they were the playmakers, and that's why it was so fun. And that's why in Overwatch 2, DPS queues go so fast. I queue for maybe 30 seconds at a time, and I instantly find a game because nobody wants to play DPS, it feels like. They just groan whenever you pick the not meta character. And so there's nothing I can do as a DPS character other than deal damage and clicking on heads. So the first problem of being a solo queue DPS character in this game is that there are the clear-cut favorites, the ones that have one-shot abilities, right? That's it. That's the first problem. You have to have one-shot capabilities to truly be meta. 2. It's just so frustrating to not... I can't even think straight, right? It's just not fun to play DPS. I can't add... Sorry. 2 is I can't add anything other than damage to my team comp. If you want to have more environmental kills, you go Roadhog. When you want to have more environmental kills, you go Lucio. When you need to have more anti-heal, you go Ana. When you want to have more anti-heal, you go Junker Queen. When you want to have more shotgun up-close damage, again, Roadhog, Junker Queen. Junkrat, but that's still damage. The only CC left in the DPS queue, the DPS role, I would even say, is Junkrat Trap, Pharah, repulsion bomb, if you even count that, because it's just like a boop. And Symmetra turrets if they don't destroy them. I think that's the only crowd control left. Tanks, of course, all have some kind of form of crowd control, right? Every single one. And you can really like shut down an ulting Genji if you just make sure to use that crowd control, right? Because, you know, the ults only last for so long, a couple of seconds maybe. And if you CC them for half of it, they're gonna panic because, again, their survivability goes down so far. I can't add anything to my team other than damage. And so when you are doing as much damage as you humanly can, and you can't change that, you can't do any better, you know, you put out the most damage in the game, you do it as much as you humanly can. Some people are going to scream, well, stop shooting the tank. It's like, well, if the tank is walking on my supports, I'm going to try to help him and shoot the tank. If Zenyatta puts the Discord orb and we eliminate the tank that way first and then run the rest down, that's how I do it. It's begrudgingly unacceptable that there's not much I can really do for the team anymore, right? And there's a reason that so many of the characters that were meta in Overwatch 1 had CC. Like, once again, look at Cassidy back when he was McCree. That nade to put down Reinhardt's shield, Doomfist, oh my goodness, Brigitte, they just removed the CC without figuring out what truly made the characters tick. And that's what I'm really frustrated on. So this is kind of just like a fun, like, what's going on in Glocktane's head. And if you really wanted to like boil it down and you wanted to talk to me about it on stream, the two big takeaways is that DPS doesn't really have a role other than just look at that number go up or one shot. And it doesn't really do anything satisfying other than trying to survive while we take down the tanks. Because the tanks are the ones that just get to do whatever they want. Look at Sigmas, bro. If I don't go Symmetra, every Sigma just reigns supreme. The supports have so many avenues for how they get to play. And so do the tanks. But it kind of feels like DPS is just pigeonholed. And I really want to see DPS be a bit more creative in Season 3. That's what I'm really hoping for. Now, I'm just going to upload this to YouTube. But I will hopefully as well try to put it on Spotify. If you have any conversation topics that you want to see me cover, I'm not sure how long these are going to be. This one is roughly around 23 minutes or so. But it's really cool to talk it out and kind of get it all put down on paper. So thank you so much for listening, watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, donating thousands of dollars. You know, the whole shenanigans. But my name is Glocktane. I stream Monday through Friday on TikTok and Twitch. If you want to stop by and say hi and, you know, call me a stupid piece of garbage for obviously having the worst opinions known to mankind. Yeah. All you got to do is verify your phone number and you can talk in my chat. So thank you guys so much for everything. Big takeaways. I want to see changes for DPS more so than nerfs to tank. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.